In our struggle for our liberation, which is our national democratic liberation, going into our economic revolution and our cultural revolution, we have always had one thing that was missing, was the voice. We did not have the strong voice. We did not, or we were not able to articulate properly. More so, in this plight of identification on who is black, we're not able equally to understand what black means. We were doubting ourselves. We had less love for ourselves as blacks. We adopted Western things. We even use ambi. Some of you don't know it. Super roads. To change our skin complexion to belong into a certain racial category. And that took a lot away from our struggle. But then came this revolutionary, Bantu Biko. He gave us our identity, to be black and proud. And today, we recognize this thing. I do see some of our great sisters wearing their afros, wearing their beautiful hair. I see our brothers shaving their hair. I see some of them wearing their cultural attires, and this is one of the things about being black and proud and building us to love ourselves as Africans. And this is a journey we have always, all of us, traveled, finding a space to belong, a space where we can articulate, a space where we can have a voice. And Bantu Biko gave us that space. We need to grow in the space, expand it exponentially. And in that regard, I would want to invite my brother, Unkosinati Biko, the son of Bantu Biko, to come and receive an award on behalf of his old father, of his old man, you know.
We don't believe, for instance, in the social on a race basis. We believe that in our country there shall be no minority, there shall be no majority, such as the people. And those people will have the same status before the law, and they will have the same political rights before the law. So in a sense, it will be a completely non-racial egalitarian society.
We have the vast number of blacks have through their experiences, being able to live their life without giving vent to feelings of revenge,
yes, unfortunately, it is the duty of the vanguard political movement which brings about change to educate people's outlooks. I mean, in the same way that blacks have never lived in a socialist economic system, they're going to learn to live in one. In the same way that they've always lived in a racially divided society, they're going to learn to live in a non-racial society. There were many things to learn, and all these must be brought to them and explained to the people by the vanguard movement, which is leading the revolution.
Baba Nkosinat, may I start with you, sir? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mother.
Thank you. Mama Biko. Which we honor them. Hey, I'm missing something. Yeah.
So there's something about this blanket. It has to be worn not horizontal. The colors must be vertical.
Thank you, Ralak. It's so good to be here. It really is. And the past 2 days have just been a wonderful experience, meeting old faces and old friends, making new friends, and hopefully plowing seeds for new friendships to emerge. Making new friends and hopefully plowing seeds for new friendships to emerge. But before I say a few words, I just wanted Deputy Prime Minister to deal with a very small matter of the outcome of the golf contest yesterday. My friend here, Elias, stood up and said, "They made you win." When he had the 4-ball that was announced, which included me, that had contested rather competitively to take the first prize. And then I heard that there was another 4-ball that had an issue with this outcome because they were disqualified. And as if that was not sufficient betrayal from my friend Elias, my own wife. And let me start elsewhere. She and I have an agreement by which we don't joke after 7 o'clock. Particularly if the joke is at the expense of the other. And we've learned over the years that the best way to go to bed is with a smiling wife or a smiling husband. And if you mess up the joke, you may not have enough time to recover. She's still arguing that it wasn't after 7. No. And indeed, we were the winners of this contest. But because the other 4-ball was gracious enough to concede without challenging our status, because they were honorable, I stand here on behalf of my 4-ball to announce that to sort this matter once and for all, we will be back here as that same 4-ball we had with Lamini over there and Ralph, and we will be at the same course at the same time at any day given to us to defend our honor. The theme for this year features 4 faces, and you have seen all of them if you have been in attendance throughout the 2 days. Dr. Esther Mahlangu, and I congratulate her family and her for the award. We saw the members of the family of Sobukwe who were called here. We represent the family of Biko. And of course, the 4th face you will have seen was Delphine, who spoke yesterday at the breakfast. And many of us took away many different things from that conversation. She had multiple touch points. But I quite enjoyed how she herself kept reminding us that it's unusual to talk about business and then talk about self and then community at the same time. And perhaps this is an error that we make where we don't quite appreciate the interconnectedness between all of these anchors of our society. we often concede power to those that lead us in governance, and we see government as a primary pillar of our society. And sometimes we even see business as a primary pillar of the societies, of our societies. But the reality is that the power of government is derived power. It derives from the power of the citizen. And every 4 years they come back to us, at least in South Africa, Deputy Prime Minister, where we have a constitutional democracy. Every 4 years they come and bow before the citizen, and we give them a new mandate. And between the election years, they seem to forget from time to time why there are blue lights that escort them. And it is not about the incumbent, it is about the mandate that we are protecting, the mandate of the people. In business, I believe we make the same mistake, where when we count our profits, we seem to forget that, in fact, our businesses are wholly dependent on the communities that we serve. And so it was quite delightful to hear from some of the business leaders here about transformation happening within their institutions that seek to embrace the reality that there is a mandate out there that must serve communities. In fact, I think that one of the biggest lessons over the past 2 years was the fact that COVID removed all of us from the market. And many institutions that thought they were strong and powerful, after 2 months, ran out of cash. And they remembered the power of the people. When you look at these four faces, of course, they are all combining around the image and the legacy of Magogo. And it was beautiful today to watch how that was at play. Sociologists remind us that there is an interconnectedness between history and biography, between the story of the individual and the story of society. And sitting at Magogo's house today, it was just so wonderful to see how her own story is so interwoven into the story, not just of her community, but the story of the region. And that is why we are gathered here. This is the third incident, and it is perhaps fortuitous that it happens 3 years after the attempt to have Biko at least and Sobukwe meet. The first was when Steve Biko was a relatively young leader of SASO, the South African Students' Organization, and he visited in Kimberley, where Sobukwe was banned. And because Sobukwe was banned, they had to protect the meeting. And so not even Biko knew when Sobukwe had entered the house. And eventually they escort him to the room, and he sees Sobukwe and he says, in isiXhosa, "Kini, kanti notikulapa." Oh my, even God is here. And he revered Sobukwe. He loved Sobukwe. He himself was not a member of the PAC, but his brother Kaya Biko was. And in fact, Steve Biko's own attraction that made him become a politician was when his brother was arrested in 1963 for being a member of Biko and a follower of Sobukwe. And he says elsewhere that from that moment I began to question society like hell. The second meeting happens around 1973. The Sobukwe family was burying the mother to Robert Sobukwe. And the Black Consciousness Movement leadership organized, and by this time both Biko and Sobukwe are banned. And they organized through Nofundo, your grandfather, Bishop Sobukwe, that Sobukwe must travel through King Williamstown. And they meet at number 15 Leopold Street, which was the offices of the Black Consciousness Movement. Dini Sobukwe, your uncle, used to tell me this story with glee. And he knew I was envious because He was a participant in the meeting, and even if I had been invited, unfortunately, it was too early in my own life for me to have remembered. And so the two met. And for many years thereafter, they continued conversations about the establishment of a united political front in South Africa. In fact, there's a wonderful story, if I may digress a little, where the emissaries go and meet Sobukwe again, and this time they meet him. Steve Biko is not in attendance, but they meet him at the graveyard. This is to avoid the security police. And at the end of the meeting, the car wouldn't start. And so Mapetla, Mohapi, and Malusi Mpumluana have to kickstart the car, but they need manpower. And so they are now discussing, they know that the prof can't drive. So they have to ask the prof to push. And of course, this is where you have, if, because, for instance, as such, but eventually, Sobukwe had to push the car for them to start to get out of there. So it's quite delightful that Gogo brings them together for the third time in conversation tonight. But the invocation of the image of both Biko and Sobukwe is both exciting and haunting. It's haunting because they have a particular message that they communicated to us. In the case of Sobukwe, it is about our affinity to Africa. And as was stated by those who went before him, including Kwame Nkrumah, we are Africans not because we are born in Africa, but because Africa is born in us. Yeah. And so when we gather here, having invoked the legacy of Sobukwe, we must remember that the agenda must be that Africa must be born in us. The image of Steve Biko equally is haunting, and he teaches us that we must develop a positive consciousness and then use it to make changes in our society around the ills that continue to visit our communities. So thank you for using this moment to even deal with the issue of GBV, and there are many, many other challenges. So lastly, Steve Biko used to say that Africans are in the habit of gathering, and we are quite fulfilled just being together without a particular agenda. We enjoy each other, we don't need each other as means to an end, right? But perhaps we are surrounded by so many issues that there must be an agenda, at least for the short to medium term. Thank you for remembering them, and may they continue to inspire us.
No, Peggy.
Do you want to call the minister after this to introduce the DPM? They actually met the DPM for the thank you. Minister what tourism is Minister Development. And I'm sharp, I'm done. Until you retire and I take
As usual, the least